Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Listen, there's a lot of things I want to say right now. I've been progging on the Weapons Refrain Ultimate all week, in fact, I'm going to be putting out a video analyzing the first 13 and a half minutes of the fight. I barely have a voice right now, and I am tired as all hell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank the sponsors, I'm going to answer questions, and then I'm going to answer questions from the Twitch chat. And all the while, you'll have to look at what we are now officially deeming my short-to-be-lived prog beard. So, before we get started with the Q&A, we got to make sure that we thank the sponsors. We had a few more people come in as sponsors over the last week, and unfortunately, I haven't had too much time to really go through those pledges and those sponsors to add them to the list. So I have a few names up here. I don't really have numbers tied to them, but I'm going to make sure that I thank those people all the same. So over on Patreon, people have been supporting the channel over on YouTube to combat hashtag demonetized, because I like to say a bad word occasionally. And also there's violent themes in video games, so sometimes videos get demonetized and it makes an impact on a lot of gaming related YouTube channels, including mine, although the impact has definitely lessened over this last several months. So first of all, we want to thank our patron of light, Khuja, and the Advent Free Company on Jenova. They've gone above and beyond with their support over the past several months at this point. And on the YouTube side of things, this is where you guys get to see an image. On the Twitch side of things, you're still looking at Prog Beard right now and wishing that you were seeing an image of something else instead. But thank you, Khuja, for your support as well as your FC. It's meant a lot over the past few months, and you're awesome, so thank you. We also have a bunch of other sponsors. If you've never sat through the sponsor list before, be ready, because I name off all of them. We have our standard sponsors. We have, and I guess I'll move this list over here so I can read it while talking into the microphone. We have our standard sponsors: Mrhappy, Red Wings of the Baron FC from Zalera, Fray Blackheart, Cidus, Oreo, and Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, Sploda, That Lame Weeb, Ashen, Emiya of Cerberus, Argoti, Tristam of Midgardsormr, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We have our elite sponsors. We have Dom, Asuka Wake from the Jenova server, Lamilianella of Midgardsormr, Sarah and the Avalanche family on Malboro, Janhyua Yotsuyu, Nyrek of Clan Vizsla, Kifka and the Grey Eagles on Exodus, Darkgraver, Katayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rah Xephon from Exodus, Violinator Westos the Purple Warrior, Adric Redsteel, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC on Zodiark, Sour Cream and Tribes from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goetia Valfer of Siren, Hirsch First of Fairy, Phoenix Down Free Company on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiark. We then have our premium sponsors. We have Starla on Coral, Sathal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Diablo, Holy Tabasco, Red Thorn Asura, Kernai Oni, Askin Hawk, Oscar, Crass015, Mustang, the Serenity FC on Ultros, Kat Kazuma, Serial Kira, and the Reckless Tea Party on Cactar, Ignis Peregrine from Diablos, Valestra of Famfrit, Nock Cordis from Excalibur, Krovos Moonscar, Private Mikey, Spike, Nadia Kirasame, Rudy Rudiger, Tingalassus, Killer Hackman, Roll Jr., Ramil Gaming, and Kiltastic Jones. You can hear my voice leaving me. We also had a few other ones that had signed up to be here, but I don't have their affiliations with which tier they belong in yet, so my apologies. That'll be fixed by next week. We have Kana Uzuki from the Jenova server. We also have Corey, that could be the same person technically with the way that these messages work. We have the Sabo Empire is one of them as well. That's actually a standard pledge, so thank you very much. Looks like we have an elite pledge here who says that I can call them a Shadow Link on the Tonberry server. We also have a Will, we have a Kazdan, and I think those are all the ones. Those are all the ones I have lined up from the past week that were not mentioned in the initial go. So thank you everyone for sponsoring over on Patreon. So let's get started with the Q&A before I actually fully lose my voice. Alright, so question number one on the forums. Hey Haps, I'm devastated since your last day of the run with Ethis. He seems to think there are no ways for Gunblade jobs to come to 5.0. We all know that Ethis is an almighty being who does not make 14 related mistakes. I know the chance for this job to be implemented in 5.0 are even higher than Geomancer considering the MSQ. How high are the chances in your opinion? So here's the thing. A Gunblade job is not really a thing. You need a job that has some sort of signature standout way of interacting with the Warrior of Light that actually makes sense from a Warrior of Light perspective in terms of adding it to the game. A Gunblade is a weapon. What the job actually is and what it actually does are two very different things from just having a Gunblade as a weapon. So ultimately, it's not that it can't happen, it's that when people suggest ideas, generally things like judge come to mind. And it's like, but what is a judge? Like, what defines the judge? And most time everyone says they have a gunblade. It's like, well, technically that's not the only type of weapon they can have. Like, I mean, then you have to, if people say, you know, a legatus or a you know, things like that, it's like, there's so many, there's not one thing that has to go a certain way with that. You know, that's kind of just stereotyping them into one type of weapon. And that's the big thing, is I don't think something that uses a gunblade is necessarily a high probability. I just because we're going to Garlemald doesn't mean we immediately take their weaponry and make a full new job out of it, especially considering the way a lot of the current gunblade users currently work and share movesets and stuff like that. A lot of the times their rigs and stuff are based on stuff that already exists. So I'm not going to say it can't happen, which, you know, he says he almost basically said it can't happen. I'm just saying that having a gunblade job I don't think that's a thing. A job that maybe has a weapon that is a gunblade, that's something that could happen. I just don't think it's very probable. Alright, question number 2. Hey Haps, long-time viewer, first-time asker, so I have a bonus of any primal bird or dog whistle. Dude, listen, Namazu mount and my Corpicur. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. Speaking of primals, clever segue, with the release of the recent 4.3 primals, wondering what your favorite and least favorite primal fights are based off thematic vibe. Listen, I can tell you right now, I never want to see Ifrit, Garuda, or Titan ever again. Now, I personally always thought of Bismarck as the worst. Yeah, I don't really like him very much. So you hit the nail on the head with that one. Thanks for taking the time to read my question, and best of luck on Ultimate. Sending my energy. So, for my favorite primal fight, I think Sephiroth. So here's the problem. I have answered a question like this before, but a lot of the times I lean towards the more difficult ones just because the primals that aren't as difficult are not as fun to me, just because that's the kind of thing I find fun. When I look back, I like to section them off. My favorite during A Realm Reborn was Ramuh. He didn't have knockoff mechanics like Leviathan or Titan, but the way you handled that fight was just so it was just so different from the way you handled things. The way the tank busters and the way the management of the orbs went. Too many orbs meant too much damage, but you needed just enough orbs to do the tank swaps, and then eventually enough orbs to take care of the tethers, and then making sure that you actually broke the people out who got terrified, and being able to use the outside of the arena, you know, bait one of the markers with the person being farthest away. It was such a chaotic encounter that still made perfect sense. Even to this day, I look at it, and having recently done it on minimum item level, go, man, they just went crazy with this fight, and I love it. I love the Ramuh encounter. If I had to pick a least favorite from that, I mean, Good King Mogomog, I just have no fun doing. As a council fight, it's pretty interestingly designed. It's just I don't find any part of it fun. It's so much of your kit is just so not usable there. You know, you can't, like, using dots is too much of a risk. Using, you know, you do one GCD too many and a dot ticks down too much. You know, pet control during that fight is terrible. You know, I think Mogomog is probably the least favorite. Is just gonna be yeah, I'm gonna say favorite there is Ramuh, and least favorite's Mogomog. For Heavensward favorites, definitely Sephiroth. I love the Sephiroth encounter, even more so than Thordan, I suppose. Thordan would normally be favorite, but having recently redone Thordan, I think I kind of look back at it with kind of just a jaded view. I think it's a really well done encounter, but I just think Sephiroth comes together a lot more for me. I think Sephiroth was the last encounter where it punished death maybe too severely, and maybe that's why I kind of resonate with it a little bit more. Sephiroth with resurrections, though, I'd still probably like. It's just the only problem with Sephiroth, it's a very rigid fight. If one person's dead, it literally makes the fight not undoable, but so not great to do. But I love seeing the execution being so on point with that encounter. Least favorite, I mean, Bismarck is, yeah, Bismarck's at the top. I mean, honestly, like, Zervan came pretty close, but Bismarck is just, I don't know who it's fun for. It's just no part of it I enjoy. So I don't even need to say anything. It's pretty much the same reason why Mogomog. Bismarck's definitely at the very bottom for probably all primal encounters ever. And then when we get to Stormblood, thus far we haven't fought the trials for Suzaku, Seiryu, or Koryu yet. But if I had to pick a favorite of what we've done so far, I'd probably say Shinryu sits at the top. I think I like the Thornton fight a little more than Shinryu, but I definitely think they did a really good job. I think there was a lot of missed potential with Shinryu, especially towards the later half of the fight. But at the same time, the first half of the fight is so well done that even the part of the second half that I think is a little less interesting still actually holds up pretty well. Least favorite so far? I don't know. Part of me wants to just say Lakshmi. Yeah, you know what? I'm going with Lakshmi thus far. I really enjoy the Susanoo fight as easy as it is. The Byakko fight, even with the intermission, if you took the intermission out, the rest of the fight's not... It's a pretty well put together fight. And the most recent one in the 4.3 main scenario quest, I think they did a really good job with that one. So I'm gonna say that Lakshmi just Vril is I could just deal. I don't even like the song. Like I don't like the song. I don't like the whole Vril thing. I just don't like anything about Lakshmi either. The ad phase is another one. It's just I can't enjoy it. I can't enjoy it. So that's my answer for each of the individual ones, since I don't have an answer for overall and least favorite outside of Bismarck, I guess. Question number 3. Hey, Haps. Oscar here. How you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Been a while since I last asked the question. No bonus, just memories of a long forgotten bonus. Then that's what? Now I'm confused. Anywho, I've got a somewhat personal question. That's fine. I have a hard time logging into 14 and staying logged in. This doesn't even sound that personal. I know what the rest of the question is going to be without reading it. I know there isn't much to do in the game, and I can't seem... I know there's much to do in the game, but I can't seem to get interested in most of it. Eureka interested in me very little. Missed out in the first few weeks. I feel totally behind. By the way, with the challenge logs now, Eureka's easy to catch up in. At least level-wise. Catching up in the armor can be a little more frustrating. But if you just even get yourself to level 20 and then participate in a couple of Pazuzus and then, you know, a few NMs, you'll get through it pretty reasonably fast. So that would be a big recommendation. Do those challenge logs. It'll get you caught up in Eureka really, really fast if you just do those once a week. My question is, how do you keep yourself interested in the game besides making a living off of it? I don't think it's fatigue what I have. I just don't know how to stay logged in. I guess it's hard. My number one recommendation is if you don't feel motivated to do anything in a game, you shouldn't feel like you have to log in every day. I don't. There are days I don't log in. It's not about... I'm motivated for when new content comes out. I'm motivated for when I want to make Gil. I'm motivated for when I want to get certain micro objectives done, or I'm helping another group prog, or I'm just interacting with my stream, or there's the stream. I'd say streaming definitely helps it. Even if I'm doing something I'm not like as interested in as other things, it makes something like doing my Namazu quests or leveling a job. It makes things like that a lot easier for me. But I like getting all the combat stuff done, and then I just don't bother after that. Like, if I don't have a reason to log in, I don't force myself to log in outside of raid days or prog or reset or things like that, you know? But whenever there's a new patch, whenever there's new excitement, whenever there's new information, I'm always excited, and I always want to log in and even just get the things done that maybe I didn't have the full motivation for even just earlier that same day. So my number one advice is just... you shouldn't feel like you have to. You shouldn't feel like you have to justify this. I mean, that's literally what people do with the sub fee. That's why some people don't like a sub fee, is because they feel pressured to play. And I'm like, just don't pressure yourself. Like, there's plenty of other things to do that aren't the game. I don't only stream 14. Like, I even started streaming 11 leading up to Ultimate's release. I streamed 11 for like a week and a half because it was free login for a few days. And then I was having a not great time. I actually keep saying I wasn't having a great time, and I still haven't explained it to you guys. I explained it once on stream, but I'll say it here, just because I keep saying it. It keeps sounding like a cop-out because it's Final Fantasy 11. People are like, he's just making some bullshit excuse for 11. As many of you know, a few months ago, I went through some really rough times, and then I just kind of trucked through afterwards. I got back. Recently was my parents' anniversary, so for me, that was a really tough time. You know, I had to be on the phone with my mother a lot, and it was really tough. I was super low energy, super low motivation. Final Fantasy 11 just kind of came at a time when I wasn't too busy in 14, and it was just low energy. It was low impact. It just came at such a time where it was just kind of the right thing I needed, and so that was my reason for not logging into 14. I didn't have to. I just played 11 instead. It filled the way I felt at the moment. So log into something else. You know, maybe try out Dauntless now that it's open beta. Maybe try out something different to fill your time. Maybe buy a game or get to that Steam backlog. Don't feel like logging into 14 is the only thing you have to do. You don't have to justify the sub that much. Just justify it when it needs to be justified. So, and if you don't have an FC with people to play with, find a new one. You know, that's what the internet is for. It's for finding communities to be a part of. If one doesn't last, then you find a new one, you know? And if there's any lasting friendships that are made along the way, awesome. So just do those things. Do any of those things. Just don't feel like you have to force yourself to log into Final Fantasy XIV. On to the next one. Question number 4. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. So now that we've seen a combination of bosses are a thing for ultimates, can you imagine how crazy if they make Faust? Dude, I don't even want Alexander Ultimate. I just want Faust. I want them to make Faust the final boss and just make, like, Manipulator and shit ads. Like, you can't stand up to Faust. Faust is, like, he's Faust. He's #1. So, you know, Faust. Yeah, and then you'll have Nisi, Gavel. Dude, I don't want to even imagine passing Nisi's while doing Gavel properly. Right? Alexander and his bosses in there just frighten me when I think of the combinations. Like, I want all of you to think back to Gordius Savage, Midas Savage, and then Creator Savage. And think about putting things that are in those encounters together. It's honestly a million times more frightening to me than anything I've done in the past few days in Uwu or even in UCOB. Just because of, like, the way those encounters were designed. It's... That's scary, man. I don't even want to start going down the route of thinking about those combinations, especially Nisi. That's the one that I fear the most. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. Alexander Ultimate will happen at some point. When it'll happen, we don't know. My guess is actually 5.1. I think 4.5 will still be in a Realm Reborn Ultimate. But it could be 4.5. Who knows? It could be anything. So we'll just have to wait and see what they end up doing with Alexander and Faust in particular. God, think about that last question. Dude, I don't even want to just do Nisi. Not to mention anything else. Just Nisi alone is already terrible. Anyway, we got the next question. Hey, Mr. Woke. Well, I know that this question was asked after we started doing Uwu Prog. I'm here to ask you a universe-shattering question. When changing the hues of plants, why are pomaces for red and blue called pomaces called red and blue, but the pomace for yellow is a mountain pomace? It's been keeping me awoken forever, and sadly in real life there is not 8 barbaric savages to beat me down for an LB puddle. What? What? There's like a reference to Ultimate in here, and then there's... What? So question number 6. Hey buddy, did you hear the news? The Need returns. Oh yeah, I actually heard about that. I saw it first thing when I woke up when it was first announced that they're reverting the greed-only rule for the 24 minutes. Big news. If I wasn't so busy, I would have made a video about it. Still can make a video about it. Probably should make a video about it. But yeah, I need to tell people about that. I'm excited. Need returning because I wasn't even trying to greed on anything most of the time. So let's do a recycled question roulette. So these are 3 questions. I picked one. They're all questions I haven't answered before. Better communication, Dark Knight's Bloodspell. I don't want to answer a Dark Knight one only because I don't know enough about Dark Knight. Like, I know how the skills work to some degree, but I just don't have experience on it. So I'm just going to sound dumb. The Namazu Beast Tribe mount, I'm going to go with better communication. Should we be able to send cross-world tells without friends lists? Yeah, it's kind of weird that the way you interact with people on other worlds, it's not very intuitive yet. It sounds like they kind of hit a snag in terms of how to get the information from one person to another in terms of servers. Because even when I was making the cross-world link shell, in order to get people to invite it, I needed to make a party finder with a password, then have people join it, and then just right-click them, and then send invite to cross-world link shell. Like, it's not very intuitive at all. There's no way for me to kind of let people interact or find it in such a way without doing that. So I think that as time goes on, we'll see cross-world interactions start to become a little bit more, I guess, a little bit less cumbersome, more so. But for now, yeah, I mean, eventually you should be able to do it, as long as... I do think, though, that if you can receive cross-world tells, it have to be something you'd have to allow, because some people wouldn't want to be bothered by that crap. It also means that potentially RMT could send tells cross-servers, so it's a bit of a problem. It'd be a nice thing to be able to do, but unless they create a service like Battle.net that kind of acts as the outer framework, which... After seeing Play Online, I kind of don't think Square Enix has a great track record with a program that has games inside of it. So kind of actually take that back. Unless they do something like that, I don't know. I feel like we're a pretty long way away from that being something that isn't cumbersome to use. Question number 7. Hey, Mr. Happy. First time asking you a question, but long-time viewer. Thank you. Thank you. What I want to ask you now is that Kingdom Hearts 3 has a release date of January 29th, 2019. Are you going to be playing Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance? Or are you going to wait till it's a little closer? The idea is probably to play through all the Kingdom Hearts again as we get closer to the actual release date. So I'll probably play through all of them that aren't the mobile games in chronological order. I can't stand 358 over 2. Recom I kind of like. 1 and 2 I like, obviously. Birth by Sleep I really liked. Fragmentary Passage played really well. And then Dream Drop Distance I've heard is a really, really mixed bag. I have no intention of playing Coded and Recoded. So that leaves me with, I feel like, and then 358 over 2. I can't, I hate 358 over 2. I can't take it. It's just, it's not fun. I don't like that game. So Dream Drop, though, yeah, I gotta play Dream Drop. It's right before, or at least the closest in proximity other than Fragmentary Passage to Kingdom Hearts 3. So, yeah, I'll play Dream Drop. But as much as I don't want to. The other thing about 358 over 2 is I don't want to go hunt down an actual copy of the game, because if I'm gonna stream all of those games, I can't stream 358 over 2. You can't stream the movie that comes with one of the Final Mix or Final Mix Pluses that they released, the mixes that they released with the multiple games. So yeah, 358 over 2 is getting abandoned. I ain't playing that game. So yeah, I'll play Dream Drop, and then I'll probably play the other ones, the main ones in the series, and leave 358 over 2 out of the mix. All right, we have the next question, which has a lot more text than the last one. Hey, Haps, Finger Guns, hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Since you suffered having fun with Ooh, I take this bonus, an invigorative potion to help your prog on Ultima. Thank you. Got a few questions for you, hopefully not too long. 1, what is this thing I see in the party finder called Uptime Strat for Susu? So Uptime Strat is not the strat that I did. So my strat for Susu, as you call her, it was basically the first strat that we came up with to beat it. And then eventually people found out that you didn't have to go all the way over there, and that a strategy we actually were going to use initially, but we decided not to use, actually ended up being something that was the preferred strat. So it's something that under normal circumstances, I would have just updated the guide. I did this for Shinryu, but as I said, right around the time that I think the day that I kind of crumbled with the thing I mentioned earlier, it was literally 2 days after the patch came out. So I got the Yotsuyu guide out, and I got that, and then I saw that, and that was when, you know, that's when I started dealing with the issue that I talked about earlier in this video itself. So I never got back to actually fix the video. I don't think I released a YouTube video that wasn't State of the Realm or Mondays for like 2 weeks at that point. So that's something that realistically I should have fixed, or I should have even just taken it down until I fixed it, even though I didn't really have the motivation at the time to actually go about fixing the video. But that's what is considered the acceptable party finder strat, the uptime strat, where you actually stand in the crescent and you don't do this movement where you move towards the south side of the arena. You just have the 2 meteors bait towards the north and south side, and then the crescent can be east or west, so you just move to whichever side the crescent is in, and the faraway person goes about halfway between the center of the room and the edge of the wall and drops the 3rd meteor there. It's a lot easier, it's a lot better. But it's honestly even easier than mine. So it's not even just uptime strat. It's straight up, hey, this should technically be... I mean, the whole reason we developed our strategy was because it was consistent regardless of position. But honestly, come on, you can't just say I'm in the big side of the arena. That's constant enough, you know? So I consider that strategy, the uptime strat, the superior strat, and what I should have updated my video to be, if not for the situation that I found myself in. So question number 2 is more of a philosophical question, which means you're probably going to get a terrible answer from me. Since the hardest content at the time, Bahamut Ultimate, was cleared with Dark Knight and the Samurai, it was cleared with every single job, although I think Black Mage in particular, I think only one person cleared it as a Black Mage on their first job. It was, no, you know what, maybe it wasn't Black Mage. Because I know one of the jobs that like everyone memes on a lot, they only beat Ultimate after beating it on another role. So like, for example, with Black Mage, they would have beaten it on Summoner first, and then did it as Black Mage after already knowing the fight. But I don't think there were any pure prog, beat it from scratch, day 1, progging to the end Black Mages. Anyway, does it mean the problem lies not in the balance of the jobs with the community itself? Generally, Dark Knight, it's more about the way it feels nowadays and less about the way it actually performs. Yes, people would like it to have raid-wide mitigation, like Divine Veil and Shake It Off, although to some sort of twist to make it, like, exclusive to Dark Knight. But Dark Knight's never necessarily been in, like, the worst of spots. It's just never... people who play Dark Knight just aren't having as much fun as they used to have, from what I understand. Newsflash, spoiler, the world first group for the most recent Ultimate, for Ultima Weapon, had a Dark Knight. And honestly, as soon as we got to the Ultima Weapon phase, I was like, you know, I think I like Dark Knight for this fight better. As soon as I started seeing all the magic damage, like all the tank busters being all magic, seeing the tank busters that happen in such close proximity to each other, the homing missiles, Dark Mind being on a 60-second cooldown, TBN being able to help the other tank with their tank, but like, there was just so many advantages to being, I felt at least, to being a Dark Knight in the actual like most important part of the fight. That being said, I don't feel like the tank you bring there is necessarily relevant to clearing the fight. I just thought that in terms of handling I really liked Dark Knight for that later part of the fight. See, party finders not allowing samurais to join. See, my big thing is because those jobs, it's just because when players are inefficient on those jobs really, really show it. Samurai, if you are not efficient on Samurai, the whole purpose of your job is to do the most DPS of anyone. If you are even somewhat inefficient, you fail that role, you're straight up failing the entire job design. And that kind of starts to happen a little bit with the jobs that get memed on more. Dark Knight, not as much, but a Dark Knight who doesn't spam Dark Arts or doesn't know how to properly play the job, like, it shows a little bit more than it does the other two jobs, I'd say, is really the reason why the Party Finder starts to really rag on those jobs, because they don't want to deal with the average player who plays those jobs. Yeah, maybe you get that samurai in your Party Finder, you're like, fuck, a samurai, and then he fucking rips 7k DPS, and you're like, oh shit, this samurai's awesome, I will play with this samurai anytime. But then every other samurai, you're still like, well, not that fucking samurai. Like, that's the kind of stuff I see, is they expect they're in the Party Finder, they're going to get an average or worse player, and thus they don't want to play with those jobs because they know what a player playing those jobs at average or worse will do. So it's I'd say that's the big reason they get locked out. If you're good on those jobs, I don't care. My own personal opinion, if you are great on those jobs, good. I have no issues doing content with you. That's it. I care more about your skill as an individual than the job you're performing that skill on. I just want you to play those jobs to their intended roles. And if you're a big dick DPS samurai, you've done your job. You're a big dick DPS black mage, you've done your job. You're a Dark Knight who knows how to play the job, you've done your job. So I'll play with you. That's it. I don't care what job you're playing. So that's what I would encourage, but I don't think, no matter how much I encourage it, Party Finder ain't gonna change. It's not gonna happen. And Samurai, I think, still needs more buffs, personally. And I hope they get more buffs. Kind of. Or utility in the next expansion. But one of the two. And then finally, you have a third question. Finally, not 14 related. I saw your Let's Play and review of Octopath Traveler. Well, it was a Let's Play. It was just a demo. Got really interested in playing it. It seems it's only on the Switch. No, yeah, it's a Switch exclusive. That's not going to change. I don't see Octopath going on any other platform. It's especially because it's made by the same team that makes the Bravely games. Bravely Default and Bravely Second, 3DS exclusive, or you know, not 3DS exclusive, but you know, just I love you, Los Angeles. Just you know, DS exclusive games. I have a 3DS. That's the only reason I say that. Yeah, they're DS exclusive games. They never came out on anything else. So I doubt it. I doubt it's going to happen on PlayStation or PC. Probably Switch exclusive. Who knows? In this day and age, it's never set in stone. But I feel like, considering the team that's developing it, yeah, you're unlikely to see it on anything but the Switch. And finally, the last question from the forums before we move over to some questions from the Twitch chat. Hey, Mr. Happy, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? Yeah, you doing all right. I play on the PS4, and I'm looking at getting the PC more, preferably a pre-built one. Do you have a suggestion on which pre-built PC to work in the long run? So I have some experience with pre-built PCs. My #1 recommendation is don't just buy it from a company unless you know someone personally who has ordered from that company. Not even me. Like, I've used Origin PCs and they work great. I've used which PC is this one? This is the one that works. This is an iBuy Power. That worked great for me, the iBuy Power one I got. The Cyber Power one I got, complete shit. To be fair, I shouldn't have ordered a custom. I basically just clicked. They said, oh, this is on sale, and I got it. And it was one of their PCs that had like a custom liquid cooling, which means that pretty much the only people who can repair it if it fucks up is them. And twice in 4 months, their liquid cooling broke. So I basically shelved that PC and said never. What I recommend doing now is go to like a, I guess it depends on where you live. Like it would be a Fry's for me, or it would be like a Micro Center for some other people. Just go there and pick out parts and pay them to build it for you, if you do not want to build it yourself. If you have a friend who builds PCs, then trust them with it. If you don't, go to one of those places and get it done there, because that is going to go way better than trying to order one and have it shipped and potentially have it get fucked up, and then if you need to bring it back, you need to ship it back in the big ass container, as opposed to just bringing it back to the local store that you went and had it built at. So if you have a friend who builds them, get him to do it, because then if it fucks up, you can blame him and you can have him look into fixing it. If you can't, find a local place like a Micro Center or a Fry's that does it. If that's not an option, then try one of the big box ones. Just try to, you know, just be careful. You know, make sure you know what's in the computer, and make sure you have an idea of how it should work when you get it. And even still, try to find someone who has experience with those. Like I said, iBuy Power and Origin are two that I have some experience with that have both worked perfectly fine. And then you know, pay the shipping fees. Have fun with that. Anyway, those are all the questions on the forums, but I still like to take some questions from the Twitch chat. So I figure I spent a lot of time on some of those questions. We'll probably just do one or two from the Twitch chat. So Twitch chat, let's see if you got some good questions, and then we'll be good to wrap up the YouTube video. All right, so I've been through like a dozen or two questions at this point, and I haven't included one yet in Mondays, but I have one right here that's about PvP. So you probably assume I wouldn't take it, but I will. What would it take for you to get more into PvP in 14? Are you currently not making much content on it due to lack of time or lack of interest? It's mostly lack of interest. So the PvP in this game has a few fundamental issues and a few issues that they've kind of forced into it with recent patches. One of the big things that immediately killed PvP for me is not being able to type to teammates in pug matches. I don't like that at all. One of my favorite things in PvP is communicating. You know, I don't want to be using these pre-made commands as opposed to actually giving, you know, having a specific interaction with people. One of the other things is one of my favorite things about pugging through the feast is when you see other people who you start to recognize a lot, you know, at least other people that you actually want to feast with, you know, sometimes it's nice to be able to, right before the match, you know, if you already know what the general strategy is for a pug match, be like, hey, you know, we just played each other in the last game. Yeah, oh man, guys, you guys took it at the last second. Yeah, it's all right. Let's try and win this one, and you know, hopefully we get on the same side. Like all of a sudden, everything that's personal, or everything that feels, I guess, multiplayer about the game is lost to me. Everything that feels like, you know, I'm playing a game with other people is kind of lost when everything is these automated responses and stuff like that. So it just feels interpersonal, just so robotic to the point where I don't have any interest in interacting with others. So that killed it for me very quick. Recently, they've also made changes. I don't dislike the changes they made to the way the actions work. It's been really weird to kind of play with because I kind of got used to the other way. I just haven't taken the time to get used to the way they changed PvP actions in 4.0, although I do think it was necessary. But the reason why it was necessary is so you could focus more on objectives, and I don't think they really made that any better. The new arena they screwed up the first time around, they've since fixed it, so that one's not a thing. I don't know. I think that really as soon as I lost communication and it just felt like everybody is a robot. I just lost all interest. It just killed it for me. And I'd love to see the return to chat. Yeah, you get shit talkers occasionally. Yeah, you get flaming occasionally. It's like, it's the internet. It's a video game. It's a competitive place of all places, PvP. It's like, whatever. You know, I guess I'm just not so... I'm not like the thickest skin person, but I'm not so thin skinned that like if I run into somebody in a match that it like, that's it, I'm done. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. Like... it's just, I'd rather have the option to communicate than the option to just cut all communication except for these little forced pre-made messages. As for the PvP itself, sometimes it's a little frustrating to actually do. I'm sure everybody who's ever played a melee in PvP has loved chasing people on occasion and the GCD not going off constantly. So that itself also kind of creates this uninteresting aspect to it. And also, I just haven't liked any of their battleground modes that they've released in recent times. I didn't like Shatter. I don't like Rival Wings. And Seal Rock, when it's on rotation for the day, is, you know, it's great. The changes they made to Secure improved that a little bit. But it's just been so many changes that have just moved it away from a direction where I was having fun with PvP, and now I'm just not. So they'd have to undo a lot, or they'd have to incorporate like a new battleground that I actually found was fun. Capture the Flag is one of my favorites. If they get to Capture the Flag, I'll really enjoy it. But until then, meh. So, yeah, those are some things for me personally that I don't like about PvP and things that make me have lack of interest. And I don't see them changing those things, you know? All right, so here's another one. This is actually from the person who asked me about Octopath. Do I think it's worth buying a Switch just for Octopath? I don't think it's ever worth buying a console for one game. And I know some people are going to look at the Switch and go, well, luckily there's already Breath of the Wild. I wasn't happy buying a Switch just for Breath of the Wild. I didn't think it was the best game I've ever played. What I like to say is, when I look at Breath of the Wild and let's say Mario Odyssey, for example. Breath of the Wild, pre-DLC, I guess I'll say, I didn't play it once the new DLC came out. It felt like it was very much like an adventure, which is how I guess Zelda games generally feel. But I felt like I was just playing in a sandbox world that just kind of wanted to kill me real bad, and less of an adventure. It just felt like I could do anything, and I did try to do everything, but none of it felt important or impactful until I got to certain key points. Breath of the Wild, I also didn't like the dungeons. I thought they were cool puzzles, but I missed having real dungeons where, you know, it's looking back to other Legend of Zelda games with the way they do dungeons versus the way that these giant, like, rotating puzzles. I thought the bosses were lame as hell, all of the main story bosses at the very least. And there's just so many things that I didn't like about Breath of the Wild, that while it was like a good game, it was like more of an adventure, just like a place I could go to screw around, try to climb up a mountain, do crazy stuff like that. Whereas Mario Odyssey is like a game, you know, I'd sit down, there's an objective, get to the end, you know, it's testing certain skills from me, and I like that. So for me, I don't think a console's ever worth purchasing for one game. I always think you should try to line up at least 3. But I would look at, I mean, Octopath is one. Shin Megami Tensei 5, if you're into RPGs, is a potential another. Breath of the Wild you may enjoy. Mario Odyssey you may enjoy. Like, there are plenty of things on the Switch that you could or might have fun with eventually when they come out. So I feel like don't just buy for Octopath, but look into some other stuff that's happening there, because Switch has some pretty nice stuff, especially from the JRPG standpoint, coming a little bit later. You might be into Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I thought it was awful, but you might enjoy it, so that's another one to look at. So take a look. You might find that you actually really want to own a Switch. All right, another question. I think I'll do this one and one more for Mondays with Mr. Happy, and then I'll probably call it a video. So, Mr. Happy, do you think Square Enix would ever consider adding zones to expansion areas during that expansion's lifetime? As someone who isn't a huge fan of Eureka's gameplay design, I can't help but wish those resources had been devoted to fleshing out Authored and adding full zones to places like Dalmasca or the Burn. So the Burn, if we ever got a full zone for it, would be actually like one of the lamest things, because there's nothing there. It's void of all life. So, I know what you mean, though. You're just trying to make a point. So, no, I don't think they will, and I think there's a pretty important reason for that. It's about creating a purpose for that zone. If you're creating an area after the expansion actually launches, let's say it's just an area for you to actually, you know, go and it's whatever, it functions exactly the same as all the other zones. You're now creating those zones. You need to create hunts for those zones. You need to find a reason to get people to go through those zones. You need to get a reason, well, okay, you generally just need to find a reason to get people into the zone, a reason to get them back into the zone, because you don't want to make all those resources and then have it go to waste, which is why new zones are generally created as tools to get us from one level to the next level, from level 60 to 61, 61 to 62. You know, that's what they're created with in mind. When it's already at the max level of 70, it's likely to be, unless you put something in there that people need to be there for very frequently, you're basically just creating a zone for the sake of creating a zone, right? You can tell a story from a zone without spending the resources to make it entirely playable. Eureka is all there from a gameplay perspective. It's all meant to be there for a gameplay reason. So that's why they can use those assets to create entirely new zones. But if they were to just make another open world zone, they'd probably have to do something exactly like Eureka in there, which I guess could maybe be the next question back to you is, would you be okay if instead of Eureka, what if this relic quest was being done in other parts of Authored, like you say, like a part closer to Dalmasca? Is it more so that you want to see the locations be present, and that you're just not a fan of Eureka being this island, which, by the way, the Isle of Val, a very important island from back in the 2.x story, or is it more so that you just want, new zones just for the sake of having new zones? Yeah, there's a few important variables there to determine. I'm not opposed to having Eureka-like mechanics in zones that are closer to what we actually, areas we actually would like to see expanded. So yeah, I guess in a way, they could just shift priority to things like Eureka and move them into zones that are closer to where we are actually progressing through the main story. But will they? I don't think they will, but who am I to say anything, right? It's just a guess. It's a prediction, speculation, or none of the above. All right, and the last question I'll take for Mondays with Mr. Happy kind of follows up on that last question a little bit. As a Final Fantasy XI player, I enjoyed the diversity of playing with other regions. How do you feel about the regions on 14 being so segregated? I think in a modern day and age, if you want to create something that's, well, modern, you kind of need to use modern technology to do it. Final Fantasy XI, all of the data centers were in Japan, as far as I know. They were all in Japan. So if you were in Japan, West Coast, you had less ping. As soon as you got further east or Europe, then, things started kind of going downhill for you at that point, unless you were playing with a VPN. So you're more than able to play with the other regions, regardless of the region that you're from. But people aren't going to deliberately put themselves at a disadvantage. I can tell you right now that if Final Fantasy XI had made servers that were in North America, or at least made more of them, or at least made it more publicly available, because when you pick a server, it doesn't tell you where the server is actually located. So that's why I'm under the assumption that they were all in Japan, especially considering the latency that I had on the East Coast in that game. If they had given us the option, hey, these are NA servers, these are EU servers, these are Japan servers, it would have happened all the same. But deliberately putting people at a gameplay disadvantage just to force people to be in the same region doesn't seem like a great solution. I mean, playing with other players doesn't need to be where your community stops in an MMO. Just because your Japanese community is mostly interacting with Japanese players doesn't mean they can't also interact with NA or EU. You see NA and EU interact with each other a lot for that reason. Obviously, it's because there's less of a language barrier there, or more often there's no language barrier there, since English across both regions is pretty widely spoken. But it doesn't mean that your community is forced to be with the region in which you play in or interact with. So I think that if you're willing to interact with other regions, you can probably find other people who are willing to interact with other regions. It's just a matter of actually finding them. And yes, that is more difficult to do when the game is actually segregated like that, but it's segregated for a good reason. Anyway, I think you can tell my voice is kind of at its limits for recording purposes today. So that's going to be the last question for Mondays with Mr. Happy this week. Thank you again, everyone who's been hanging out through the Q&A. Again, I did a huge thank you when I was doing the explanation of the mechanics we've seen so far for Ultimate, but you guys have been awesome this last week. There's more words than I could possibly say, and I don't have the voice to say all of them, but this week has been incredibly uplifting, and it's just been a whole nother experience. So congratulations to Entropy again for getting your world first. I said it in the other video as well. And thank you everyone who's been hanging out. The thousands of people who have been tuning in for Progression. We'll be hopefully beating the fight this week, and then I'll have a kill video up on YouTube, and then we'll do another analysis video, and it's going to be a good time. State of the Realm this week's going to be on Monday. We didn't do one last week because of the just sheer numbers of hours of prog that I did. We'll have one on Monday and one on Thursday. So we're actually going to have 2 within 3 days of each other. So it's going to be intense. But those of you who missed one last week, you're getting double the dose this week. So be grateful for that one. On that note, though, I am going to hang out with my Twitch chat for a few more minutes. On the YouTube side of things, thank you for watching. If you have questions for next week, ask them in the Dream Network forums. It's in the description of the YouTube video. Go there, ask your questions there. Or tune into the Twitch live stream on Sundays around 12:30 to 1 p.m. Pacific and ask your questions live. But anyway, YouTube side, I'll see you guys next time. Twitch, let's hang out for a few minutes. So until next time, take care.